Is Joe Rogan breaking up with Spotify for Elon Musk's X instead? Well, according to the New York Post, that could be an option for the podcast giant whose show, The Joe Rogan Experience, has an audience of roughly 11 million, dwarfing many mainstream media competitors. It's so large, it's almost unthinkable.
Rogan signed an exclusive licensing deal with Spotify that paid him a reported $200 million in 2020, but with streaming companies cutting their costs as Rogan's contract comes to an end, industry experts said the podcaster is in the driver's seat. This also comes after Rogan and Spotify faced controversy during the pandemic when Rogan was accused of spreading misinformation after interviewing controversial figures on the COVID-19 virus. The Post has sought comment from Rogan and Spotify. Nothing yet.
So this is all speculative. There's no real confirmation that this is happening or even being talked about, but it wouldn't surprise me if Elon would like to acquire Rogan for sure. They're buddies. He's been on the show many times.
What we do know is that Joe Rogan signed this deal. It's almost 3 years ago. 3.5 years that contract is up. Now, Spotify might feel like it got the good part of the bargain. People signed up for Spotify, I'm sure, to listen to Joe Rogan exclusively there. The question is, does Joe Rogan have an itch to no longer be so exclusive, to be able to post on other websites like YouTube, where he was very, very popular? I mean, the clips still get posted, but it's not quite the same thing. Not everybody has Spotify. Some people want to listen in Apple Music or SoundCloud or whatever it is. Does he feel limited at all by that relationship? And would switching to X make him more exclusive to X, just like he was exclusive to Spotify? Or perhaps there might be some inducement if he's allowed to have a little bit more flexibility there. Yeah,
that's where the negotiations would come in. People who've migrated, for instance, to Rumble, who are in YouTube and moved to Rumble, Rumble, which is, I think, a great and important platform for providing voices that get shut out of other tech platforms. We talked earlier in the show about how Steven Crowder, who obtained parts of the Nashville Shooters Manifesto, is talking about that on Rumble because other social media sites have utterly unbelievably censored the story already, so it's very important. But Rumble, I know from when we talked with Rumble about potentially having Rising appear there in some form, they do want some degree of exclusivity, which I understand. It's their business model. That's how they're trying to compete. So people who are on Rumble can only post. It's probably different depending on how you work out your agreement. Can only post some amount of clips on other social media sites. I believe this affects Glenn Greenwald and Russell Brand and Kim Iverson to some degree. I don't know exactly what those terms are. So yeah, exclusivity comes up a lot in these kinds of negotiations. So it would be interesting to see whether Elon would offer something different. I do think X is not exactly set up right now for a lot of people to listen. You can watch it, but a lot of people just listen to what Joe Rogan is saying, and it's not really a listening app right now, but maybe that could be fixed or improved.
Yeah, trying to imagine how this would work. You're driving in your car, you have your phone open to Twitter, and you're playing a Twitter video. Does it stop playing when your phone screen turns off and goes to sleep like YouTube does? Is it going to be kind of funneled through the what do you call it? Chat, the group, what do you call it? Twitter Spaces type of functionality, where that will stay open as you scroll and go other places. But where does the video component come in? Are you going to have the option just to listen only or watch the way that you do on Spotify? And I think, importantly, can Elon Musk afford this? Is this a good business opportunity for him? Famously, Twitter is down 50% in terms of its value, from $44 billion to $22 billion over the course of the year or so that he's owned it. Arguably, spending $200 million on Joe Rogan is just a drop in that bucket. And if it really does get people to come over to the app and use it in different ways, maybe that would be well worth it.
Yeah, I think another thing Elon would potentially have to offer someone like Rogan is additional confirmation that you won't be, that you have creative control and you can interview contrarian people. Obviously, Rogan's already been able to do that to a very substantial degree on Spotify, but there was pressure on Spotify based on some of the COVID people, and they stood up to that pressure. They continued to platform. So it could be the opposite. He could feel some loyalty to Spotify because they didn't treat him badly. If I'm recalling, right? They didn't take, am I recalling this wrong? They didn't take down specific episodes, did they?
There were 70 episodes that were removed back in...
It was from the backlog.
2022.
From the back catalog. They didn't, as he made an episode, they didn't tell him he couldn't post. I genuinely don't recall.
I mean, if you know that 70 of your past episodes have been taken down, I don't know how much someone needs to tell you not to do a certain kind of coverage or how much you do it.
What I'm saying is that might have been the agreement. They might have agreed to that when they made the contract.
But isn't that part of the problem?
Well, anyway, that's what I was going to say, that Elon could offer that we're not going to do control over what you're saying and having on.
So interestingly, the 70 episodes that were removed were recorded between 2009 and 2018, so before COVID. So this wasn't COVID misinformation stuff. This was maybe MMA fighting, trans and sports discourse. There were a number of episodes where he said the N-word that I remember getting pulled.
I remember one where he talked about Kim Kardashian commenting on her physically. I don't know if that was in there.
This all seems very quaint now, given the kinds of things that are the focus of censorship and cancellation.
Right. Well, and that matters. We're content creators, and having the ability to say what we want to say and talk about what we're going to talk about matters to us, and it matters to all the people we're friends with who make video content on various platforms. So again, a platform that can safeguard you and can say we're not gonna mess with you, and we would never cave to a mob to take you down, is very valuable. Maybe more valuable than $200 million, I don't know, but it's valuable.
Maybe. I mean, the one thing I would really be concerned about, as someone who really cares about my show and is proud of my show and proud of my audience and the community that I've built, even if I made a lot of money, I would be concerned if it was no longer accessible to my audience because it was now on Twitter. There have been,
But Twitter's a completely accessible place.
No, I mean in terms of the ease of use, not literally like a barrier, but are people going to stop listening to my show because it's no longer convenient just to have it pop up in their Apple Podcasts the way that most of us listen to podcasts? I would be worried about not people getting mad at me and leaving, but just a natural petering off of my audience because the outlet that I'm on is sort of obsolete. I mean, the Rumble people struggle. Right? Rumble is still the ancillary app to YouTube. It's where you go when YouTube won't let you say something. It's not your first choice. And obviously Rumble's trying to change that by, having folks like Glenn and Kim and Russell Brand go over to the show. And I'm sure it's working in part. But who among us is saying, I got to log into the internet and watch a video, let me go straight to Rumble? But that still tends not to be the case. It is so hard to dislodge people from these big apps, because the value of the big app is that everybody is on it in one place. And when you put something in the search engine, you're going to get the top video for MMT or Will and Jada or whatever it is that you're looking up on YouTube in a given day.
Yeah. Well, we will see how that conversation proceeds. If Joe Rogan moves the show elsewhere, obviously he could make huge waves if he was on Rumble or on Twitter or anywhere else.
But could he? Do we look at the Tucker Carlson example? Do we not think that Tucker Carlson is diminished in terms of his public influence now that he's not on Fox and now that he's exclusively on X?
I think it's diminished somewhat, yeah.
And do you want that? He's not hurting for money, Joe Rogan. Are you really willing to take that hit?
Well, if you're not hurting for money, you might say it's about a cause or something like that.
But people care. Like, Tucker Carlson strikes me as a guy who cares about being heard and who cares about having influence.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
It wasn't his choice, though. They fired him.
No, of course. But I'm just saying that the impact of going on X, as a content creator who values what you say and think that what you're doing is important, I do wonder if that would be a sticking point for Rogan.
Frankly, I do think X could do more to make itself a more appealing site for video or for something like podcast, with some changes to the layout and some different choices. But.
Well, he'd have to hire some engineers to do that, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's something that he's been into recently.
You got to spend money to make money. That does it for us for today. Tomorrow on Rising, states across the country will be holding their elections for governor, state legislature, and other offices. And we will be bringing you all of the very important, very interesting results on the show tomorrow. Don't miss that.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts, not just on Twitter, but anywhere. You listen to podcasts. All right, take care.